This morning, SpaceX completed yet another successful rocket launch, sending a crewed craft into space for the third time in the last 12 months.
3, 2, 1, 0. Mission and liftoff. Godspeed, Endeavour, and Crew 2.
Tariq Malik joins us now. He's the editor-in-chief of Space.com. Who better to have on, Tariq? Thanks for joining us this morning. So let's talk about this launch. Now, it was delayed by a day because of weather. Looks like weather was better today, so it all went off. How did it go, and what was going through your mind as you watched?
Well, this was a picture-perfect launch for SpaceX. It seems like they had over 90% good weather chances this time. Yesterday, they were a little bit worried about the weather downrange as the rocket would have been flying on its way to space. It seems like the astronauts here had a great time. In fact, just before launch, they were playing a French hand game in the spacecraft itself, just to kind of pass some time. It all just went so swimmingly. Now those astronauts are in space. They've taken off their spacesuits and kind of gotten ready for the 23-hour trip to the space station, and they'll arrive early Saturday.
So now, Tariq, let's talk about what happens once they get there. So they're heading to the International Space Station. First, I am fascinated by some of the details that I've learned about this. It sounds like it's a little bit crowded on the International Space Station. They've had to add a toilet, and not everyone has a bed at this point. So first, just tell us about what's going on up there, and then also what their mission is once they get there.
Yeah, this is the first time in a long while that we've had 11 people on the space station. It won't be like that for long. 4 more astronauts, the Crew 1 crew, the ones that SpaceX launched last fall, they're going to come back to Earth early next week, around Wednesday or so. So they'll have a bit of a crowded time right now. In fact, a French astronaut, Thomas Pesquet, shared some photos. I guess there's some last-minute building on the space station where they're adding some temporary bedrooms for these astronauts. Shane Kimbrough, the commander of this SpaceX spacecraft, will likely be sleeping inside the SpaceX capsule for a while until things ease up a bit. So it'll be a bit crowded to have those folks there. It'll ease up, and then they'll get into a 6-month mission of experiments. There's over 200 experiment supplies coming up on this flight. They're likely going to have spacewalks to get ready to. Other private space vehicles could be visiting. Boeing, another company, wants to launch a test flight later this summer. These astronauts may be there for that, and then they'll be really shifting into what would be a really operational flight for both SpaceX and NASA.
So they're going from social distancing on Earth to super crowded in the International Space Station. So, Tariq, right. This is the first time SpaceX has launched a used rocket and a used capsule. I mean, in my household, we have a very long discussion over whether to buy a used dining room table. This is, of course, very different. But how significant is this achievement for future missions?
SpaceX really has made a name for themselves as the rocket reusable company. That's something that their founder, Elon Musk, made a priority, not just because they want to get the most out of the vehicles that they're building, but also because it drives down the cost of their rockets. They want to be able to fly more and more people. For NASA, it's a pretty good buy. That's why NASA's space shuttle was reusable for the most part as well. And so, that was kind of always the vision for SpaceX. NASA did take some convincing over the last few years to get this, but they've seen SpaceX's success with all of their rockets landing on either landing pads on the ground or on drone ships like this one did at sea, and then the reuse. In fact, SpaceX is getting really close to flying a Falcon 9 rocket main stage for the 10th time soon. That could happen later this year, and that's a goal that the company has set when they roll these out. So, it seems like it's getting more and more acceptable to use these used spacecraft. SpaceX hopes to launch more astronauts and even civilian astronauts on used spacecraft coming up in the months ahead.
Tariq, one of the other things that I thought was really cool, because of the fact that it's used, I understand one of the astronauts' husbands actually was on this last year in the same seat.
That's right. That's right. The Crew 2 pilot, Megan MacArthur, her husband is NASA astronaut Bob Behnken. And this spacecraft it's called Endeavour. Bob actually named it back in the summer of last year when he launched with a crewmate on the Demo 2 mission. That was the first crewed flight that SpaceX ever flew for NASA. So they named it Endeavour, and then just kind of by coincidence, when Megan's turn came up, she's flying on the exact same spacecraft. So we expect there might have been some pointers shared about, the best parts of that spacecraft to call on the way up there.
Yeah, it's not the best seat. All right, Tariq, thank you so much for joining us. What an exciting morning.
A pleasure to have us. Thank you.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.